What's happening, everybody? It's Sean with Reactions to the Classics. And today we got a reaction to the Police and their album Reggatta de Blanc, brought to us by a friend, longtime supporter, and patron of the channel, Robert. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate you. Appreciate all the patrons who make this thing go. If you'd like to support us in any way, check out that Patreon link below or Patreon link on the end screen. We couldn't do without the patrons. Running a free trial. Go check it out. All right, so I do have a full album reaction of Synchronicity that I did a very long time ago. Go check that out after this. Just type in the Police. Otherwise, there's not much up from the Police. Obviously, I know the band. I was born in 1971. I don't know this album. I really just know Synchronicity. And I mean, I know some songs from some other albums and stuff. But this is the second album released in October 1979 by A&M Records. It's the band's first release to top the UK albums chart. Features their first two UK #1 singles, Message in a Bottle and Walking on the Moon. Went to 1 in Australia, 3 in Canada, only 25 in the US. Wasn't quite time yet. The album's title loosely translates in French to white reggae, so you can kind of get an idea of where we're going here. It took 4 weeks to record, spaced over several months. Unlike its successors, Zenyatta Mandata, probably said that wrong, but hey man, their album names are challenging in these first 3 albums. There was no pressure on the band. Of the sessions, drummer Stuart Copeland said, "We just went into the studio and said, right, who's got that first song? We hadn't even rehearsed them before we went in." Against the wishes of A&M Records, who wanted to equip the promising band with a bigger studio, more famous producer, the Police opted to again record its Surrey sound with Nigel Gray. The small budget, between £6,000 and £9,000, was easily covered by the profits of their previous album, further ensuring that the record label would have no control over the actual creation of the band's music. Sting actually said, "That was where it all clicked. We had reggae influences in our vocabulary and they became synthesized into our infrastructure. As a musician, you learn your craft and emulate and copy people, and suddenly there's a moment in your development where you grow up and finally become yourself. I think Reggatta de Blanc was that moment for us." Whereas Outlandos de Amor had benefited from one of the more prolific songwriting periods of Sting's life, the recording sessions for this one were so short on new material, the band even considered re-recording Fallout at one point. To fill in the gaps, Sting and Copeland dug up old songs they had written and used elements of them to create new songs. The closing track, No Time This Time, was previously the B-side to So Lonely in November 1978. It was added to pad out the album's running time, which is a little over 41 minutes. I guess probably at that point in time, the record company wanted it to be 40 minutes or above. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with 36, 37 minutes, but I don't think they were controlling that part of it. All right, first up, we got a song that's highly acclaimed, Message in a Bottle, lead single, written by Sting. It's the story of a castaway on an island who sends out messages in a bottle to seek love. Having received no response for a year, he despairs, believing that he is destined to be alone. The next day, however, he sees, quote, 100 billion bottles on the shore and realizes there are more lonely people like him. It was the first of the 5 UK #1 singles by the Police. Rolling Stone ranked it 65 on its list of 100 greatest guitar songs of all time. According to the band's guitarist, Andy Summers, Sting had initially intended the guitar riff that Message in a Bottle was centered on for a different song. Summers said in 1981, "Sting had that riff for a while, but there was another tune with it originally. He'd been fiddling with it during our first American tour. Finally, he rearranged the riff slightly and came up with the song." Summers came up with, as Sting described, "lovely guitar shiver" during the break prior to the third verse. Sting praised this addition, saying talking about Summers, he'd do that, the song would be quite raw, and he'd just add these lovely colors, end quote. The riff in its final form is built of multiple overdubbed guitar parts played by Summers. Stuart Copeland's drumming praises, quote, "his finest drumming track by Summers was overdubbed from about 6 different parts." So they're already in the lab really putting stuff together. And I mean, I'll mention it on the title tracks next, so I won't go in here to their actual musical ability, instrument ability of these guys. We'll get into that in a minute. Despite its popularity in the UK, the song only reached 74 in the US. I don't think I know it. I think that's why I don't know it. In addition to saying it was his favorite song in an interview with Jules Holland of the BBC, Sting described it as, quote, "a good song," and he was very proud of it. Copeland said it's one of our best moments in the studio and always great on stage. And Summers described the track as a personal favorite in his book. He said, "For me, it's still the best song Sting ever came up with and the best Police track." So, I mean, I did all this research. I'm pretty pumped to hear it. I think it's going to be great because, I mean, if it's 2 of the 3 of the guys' favorite songs, it's got to be fantastic. If you've never been with us before, the music won't be in the video, but it's going to be at that Vimeo link below. So click on that, follow with us if you want to hear the music. If you just want to hear what I think because you know this album, stick right here. I'm going to have the lyrics up as always. Thanks again, Robert. All right, Message in a Bottle. I thought I knew the song when he got into the chorus, sending out an SOS, But now I don't know that I actually knew this song, the longer one. It sounds familiar. It sounds like a great Police song, right? And, you know, Sting obviously has a distinct sound to his voice. I think one of the most distinctive frontmen ever. Not in a bad way, just like his voice is very distinct. It's not cookie cutter. Yeah, I don't know that I knew that. It's a fantastic song. The musicianship is top notch, which I'll get into that on this next track, on the title track. But I can see why it's so well acclaimed. Next up, we get the title track, Reggatta de Blanc, or Blank. The instrumental evolved, so it's instrumental, from improvisational stage jams during early Police performances of the song Can't Stand Losing You. This won a Grammy Award for Best Rock Instrumental Performance in 1980. Stuart Copeland used a delay pedal on his drum kit, which he would use on the song Walking on the Moon from this album. In 2000, the band discussed the origin of this track with Revolver. Sting said, on the first tour, we had a very short set, only about 10 numbers. The songs only lasted 2 minutes each. Oh, man. And when Stuart was on form, they'd last even less time. So we had about a 9-minute set, right? I mean, that would really be like 20 minutes, but okay. People would tend to want their money back after that. So we had to extend the songs ad nauseum so we could get paid at the end of the night. Eventually, all the songs began to develop a free-form jazz aspect to them, and that growing sophistication was reflected on the album. Stewart said, right, like Reggatta de Blanc was actually a stage jam that eventually solidified into a new piece. All right, the title track is quick. I mean, it's a little over 3 minutes, but it seemed like, I'm like, is this already almost done? Because I don't have it up on the Spotify like itself. I just happened to go over to it. I'm like, wow, okay. It's almost done, because I could tell it's fading out. It's really well done. Super interesting you would make it the second track on your second album, right? This is something that normally would be maybe the last track or the next to the last track, or, you know, kind of buried on side 2 back then. But, you know, a bold move to put it here. Next up, we got It's All Right For You. And Stuart Copeland, of course, who's our drummer, helps on guitar during the verses and chorus. It's All Right For You. Andy's guitar playing on there was fantastic. This is an interesting song. This is more punk, right? So you're going to get this side of the Police. I mean, we got reggae, we got punk. This is punk, but with a nicer little melody, a little more refined melody in there. But yeah, it's a really good song. These first 3 songs are banging on this thing. Next up, we got Bring On the Night. It's originally a song called Carry On Prince, O Ye of Little Hope, written 3 years earlier for Sting's previous band, Last Exit. The title was based off Ted Hughes' poem, King of Carry On. When the song was first written, it was about Pontius Pilate, but after reading Norman Mailer's The Executioner song, Sting felt the song better suited Gary Gilmore's Death Wish, and since then, Sting said, I sing it with him in mind. After Sting left the Police for a solo career, he released both an album and a video titled Bring On the Night. The album is a live performance of his songs, and the video is a documentary of him, as well as several live performances in Paris, France. I've seen a few of those videos back in the live stream days when we live streamed over on Twitch. Now we do it on YouTube. But I've seen some of those videos. Fantastic. The song was only released as an album track in Britain, but was released as a single in the US, Germany, and France in January 1980. Single managed to hit number 6 in France, did not make the charts in the US and Germany. Like I said, US wasn't quite ready for the Police yet on this album, and as I'm seeing so far, they missed out. All right, fantastic song. I mean, we're going the reggae side here, some great bass playing from Sting, but some fantastic guitar playing, almost classical guitar playing, who studied the classic guitar for 6 years and like worked on it after he had already been in the Animals and a couple other bands. So we're 4 songs through. We got one more song for side 1. Side 1 has been fantastic. Death Wish, he's driving like a crazy man. Some of us might have done that as teenagers when we were like carefree. I'm not saying who, but the bass work on this one, this is really a showcase for the bass. Although Stewart's guitar work on here was also quite good, but it was a bass song. Sting getting his song in here on the bass at the end of side 1. Well, we started out with side 1 with the number 1 song, Message in a Bottle. We're going to start out side 2 with another number 1 song, Walking on the Moon. Their second single, and it went on to become the band's second number 1 hit in the UK. It also reached number 1 in Ireland, 9 in Australia. Didn't chart at all in the US. Also, I don't think I know this. Sting has said he wrote the song when he was drunk one night after a concert in Munich. The following morning, he remembered the song and wrote it down. He said, quote, I was drunk in a hotel room in Munich, slumped on the bed with a whirling pit when this riff came into my head. I got up and started walking around the room singing, walking around the room, yeah, walking around the room. That was all. In the cool light of morning, I remembered what had happened and I wrote the riff down. But walking around the room was a stupid title, so I thought of something even more stupid, which was Walking on the Moon. In his autobiography, Sting implies the song was partially inspired by an early girlfriend. Deborah Anderson was my first real girlfriend. Walking back from Deborah's house in those early days would eventually become a song, for being in love is to be relieved of gravity. Quite the way to put it. All right, Walking on the Moon, interesting bass riff there. The arrangement of it is odd in a good way. I like the song a lot, but I am shocked because of that odd arrangement that it was a number one song. Like, that shocks me, honestly, at this point in time when it was, that it was a number one song. But I mean, I really liked it, so I guess maybe everybody else did on hearing it originally, but didn't fit in at all with the popular music of the time, and maybe that's why people were drawn to it. But there's a few of the songs on side one I think would have sounded more commercially appealing, but obviously I don't know what I'm talking about on that. But next up is On Another Day, written by Stewart Copeland, but also he takes lead vocals. On Any Other Day, I mean, when it started, I'm like, okay, but, we had to throw Stewart a bone. It's fine. It's one of 11 songs. But the more it went on, I mean, it's not going to be a favorite. Already spoiler, but it's actually not bad. It's like, it is what it is. It's this fun little song. Bass line in here is fantastic. Though, still got great instrumentation. Sting's coming in helping him on a lot of the lines, so they're singing them in harmony, or a little off on the harmonies. A little staggered on the harmony on the vocal, a little half second behind to kind of give it a little texture, not really have to showcase Stewart's voice as much. But all these things are happening to him that he views as challenging. And we learn at the very end why it'd be all right if it was on any other day, and it's his birthday. So actually a fun one. Next up, we got The Bed's Too Big Without You, final single, an alternate version. So keep this in mind. An alternate version was released as a single in the UK in 1980 in the set Six Pack in conjunction with the re-release of their earlier singles, Roxanne, Can't Stand Losing You, So Lonely, Message in a Bottle, Walking on the Moon. So you might, if you live in the UK and you're of a certain age, you might remember it sounding different than this because it was a different version. The themes of the song are loneliness and the pain at the end of a relationship. According to Chris Campion, the lyrics were inspired by an incident in which Sting's first girlfriend, after being heartbroken upon their breakup, committed suicide. Oh my, man. Wow. The Bed's Too Big Without You, a heavy bass line in the song, as there has been on some of the other songs. This one probably as much or more so than any of them, probably in line a little bit with Death Wish, but probably even a little bit more. It's a fine song. I mean, if it's really about that heavy subject, I totally get it. But I mean, it's fine. It's not a standout for me. Next up, we got Contact, the second of three songs written by Stewart, although in this one, he is not singing it. So I think we're starting to see what I talked about in the beginning, where they didn't have enough material for this album, because we have some absolute bangers on side one and obviously at the start of side two. And I think we're starting to see where they kind of ran out of material. And what you do in those days is you just kind of bury all those songs at the end. I mean, this song is pretty much a throwaway. Stewart's back again. I mean, that last song was as much a throwaway, with the lyrics as anything. The arrangement's still nice. So we got Does Everyone Stare? The lyrical style is best summed up by Stewart Copeland's official website. It says, Does Everyone Stare has a more tragic tone. Feelings of inadequacy pervade the whole song, and this is particularly evident in the massive use of the interrogative form. Okay, Does Everyone Stare? Once again, it's okay. It's weird on Genius, which is the website that I use for lyrics, genius.com. It's usually by far the best. The lyrics on this song are wrong. It's crazy. They're wrong. They're almost all wrong. I mean, the chorus is right, but the rest of it's wrong. So I was trying to track with that. Stewart has this weird spoken word part at the start. So I'm like, wait a minute, does Stewart sing this? Because everything where I said that Sting did, but then Sting got into it. It's okay, man. Now we got No Time this time to finish it out. It might sound a bit different from the rest of the album, almost like it fit better with the previous album. As I mentioned earlier, That's No Accident. It was previously the B-side to the So Lonely single in November of 1978. Would have been crazy if it was 1778, huh? Because they wanted the album to, be over 40 minutes. Okay, No Time this time. Obviously, it just does sound totally different than the rest of the album, because this is not the vibe on this album. It's not the musical style. It was at least recorded by the same producer in the same studio. It was only a year beforehand. So it's not like we pulled something out from 5 years ago. But remember what I told you at the start of this song. And I know you do, because I know you're paying attention. It was a B-side for a reason. It's fine. Now we're getting into my favorite tracks. Honorable mention, the title track. I mean, even though it's an instrumental, it's fantastic. It's All Right for You and Bring on the Night. Faves are going to be, it's easy. Walking on the Moon, and the best song on here was the first song on here, Message in a Bottle. But 5 of the first 6 songs, and really you could have thrown Death Wish in there, the 5th song, if you wanted to, as an honorable mention, were honorable mentions or faves, and then there wasn't any more. So this is an interesting album to grade, because after side 1, I'm like, dang, man, this bad boy is going to be like an 8.75 or a 9. I rarely, if you watch this channel, give 9s, like just on first listen. Obviously, you know, if you've heard an album 20 times or 30 times, I'm like, oh man, that's a 9 all day. But on first listen, you know, it's usually not there, because the more you play good music, the more you like it and vibe with it. But I thought it was going to get there. But then, you know, we really fell off on the second side. There's nothing that's horrible. But these guys, like, I just don't think people understand. And the longer we get away from it, they don't understand. Like, you got 3 musicians who are thought of as in the list of all-time greats, not at the top. You know, Stuart Copeland was named by Rolling Stone as the 10th greatest drummer of all time. And he is unbelievable. And with Andy Summers, his style really inspired a lot of people back in the early 70s and mid 70s, before the Police even got going. So he's unique, and Sting's considered, you know, a fantastic bassist. You know, he's not Jaco Pastorius, but who is? But he's considered an outstanding bassist. So you throw all these guys together, and like, it's going to be hard to have songs that are going to be bad, because even if they're not well written, Sting's a very good vocalist. I said that earlier. He's very unique. And I mean, the music itself, the arrangement, the instrumentation is just going to be good. So none of this stuff was bad, but it makes it an interesting album to grade. Usually they're not this challenging. I'm going to go with a 7.5, because I think the high points are really high and the low points are not really low. So 7.5 on first listen. Let me know what you think of this album, where you think it fits in the Police's catalog. I mean, it's not hard to rank the albums, but I'm really glad that Robert brought this one, because the only album I've heard in its totality is Synchronicity, for no good reason. I used to like the Police a lot. I really like that album a lot. Every Breath You Take is one of my favorite songs of all time. Didn't understand when I was 12 years old kind of the content of what the song was about, but hey, man, you know, we were all singing it back in 83. So thanks again to Robert. If you haven't already, give this a thumbs up, hit that big red subscribe button, and until next time, guys, I will see you.